Okay, so welcome to our Sharon Torah Time. We're up to Perek Chaf, and we are continuing on that when David HaMelech comes back is on the way back to Yerushalayim, and there's a little conflict going on between the Shevet Yehuda and the rest of the Shvatim, and they're fighting over who's more loyal to the king and who should have escorted the king. V'sham nikra ish Belial. Ish Belial means a person. Belial, the word Belial means Beli oil. There was a guy who was a bad guy. Ushmo Sheva ben Bichri. His name was Sheva ben Bichri Ish Yemini. Now Ish Yemini is a very important point because that shows that's Shevet Binyamin, which is from Shevet from Shaul HaMelech. So he was a loyalist to the Shaul camp. He was still stuck in the old system that Shaul used to be the king, and then has to continue on his lineage. And he saw an opportunity over here, how he's going to make a rift. Now, traditionally, there was always a fight between the two camps. All of the children from Rachel and Leah are always fighting in Nach. There's the Bnei Rachel and the Bnei Leah. The children from Rachel, which is Yosef and Binyamin, they're always on one side, and then there's all of the rest of the Shvatim who are children from Leah. So really, Shevet Yehuda is the prime Shevet from the camp of Leah. Sheva, this Bichri fellow, this Sheva ben Bichri saw an opportunity how he could get all of the other Shvatim to turn against David HaMelech. Even though David HaMelech is from Shevet Yehuda, but because the Shvatim were upset at Shevet Yehuda, and they felt that David HaMelech was playing favorites with Shevet Yehuda, he went and Vayiska b'shofar, he blew with the shofar, which is in order to announce a rebellion, Vayomer, and he said, Eilanu chelik b'David, we're not part of the David HaMelech's Malchus anymore, V'loi nachlas lanu b'ben Yishai, we don't have anything to do with this Ben Yishai, Ishlei halav Yisrael, everybody should leave David HaMelech and go back to where he came from. The reason being because David is only loyal to his own private Shevet of Yehuda, and he doesn't care about anybody else. Therefore, we were right all along that he's not a king that's including all. Vayal kol ish Yisrael me'achrei David, everybody left David. Achrei Sheva ben Bichri, and they started following Sheva ben Bichri. The Ish Yehuda Dovku b'Malkom. But the people from Shevet Yehuda, they were loyal to David and they stuck it out with him. Min ha'Yarden v'ad Yerushalayim, from the Jordan until Yerushalayim. Vayovei David al Beis Yerushalayim. So David returns home back to Yerushalayim. Now here we go off on a little tangent, and we're telling you the scene that awaited him when he came back after the whole rebellion from Avshalom. Was that he came back to his palace, he had his wives over there, this Palakshim. And if you remember, Avshalom had relations with all of his Palakshim. That was part of Achitophel's advice, that he was going to undercut his father. So now, Vayikach HaMelech is Eser Noshim Palakshim Asher Niniach Lishmer HaBayis. He took all of these wives, Vayitnem Beis Mishmeretz. He put them into a special guarded house. He sustained them, he gave them food, he gave them clothing. But he never had relations with them again. And there's two pshatim why. One reason is, the simple pshat is, because his palakshim were used by his by a hedyot, or by his son who was a hedyot, and therefore automatically they become asin. But even according to the so they were tied up. So what happened was they became tzirudos ad yoim moison al menois chayos, until they died. They were lebedik almonos. This is where the phrase lebedik almona, like a living widow. This is where the term a living widow comes from, because these Pilakshim were living widows. Their husband was alive, but they were as if they were widowed, and that was part of the tragedy of the whole story over here. Now, it's even more tragic because David HaMelech, I'm going to read here Yerushalmi and Sanhedrin. I found it fascinating. Rabbi Yehuda bar Pazi b'shem Rabbi Pazi b'shem Rabbi Yochanan melamed sheyu David mekalaton mekashataton machnison lefana b'chol yom. David HaMelech would have them, dressed well. They were taken care of. V'oymer leyitzrei hara. And David HaMelech used to have them hanging out in the house, and he would tell his own desire to after David HaAslecha. You once had desires for something that was forbidden. Remember back in the Basheva days? Remember you had desires? Chayecha shani mas'ivcha David amuta lecha. Chayecha, by your life, I swear that I'm going to withhold from you something which is permitted for you. The Rabbanan, the Kesarim, Asuris Mamashoya. They say that they were really forbidden because Makli Hedit Shenishtamesh Bem Hedit Osel Melech L'Shtamesh B'Klei HaMelech Shenishtamesh Bem Hedit and Edin Shei HaMelech Osel L'Shtamesh Bem. So it's the tragedy of it is that David HaMelech always brought things back home. He always took responsibility in himself, and he knew that the whole story of these wives of these Palakshim and the whole story of Avshalom always comes back to his story with Bathsheba and Uriah Hitti. So when he was back home, he took responsibility that he wasn't going to get any benefits from them. He wasn't going to use them for his own personal pleasure any longer, and it was his own way of, I don't want to say chastising himself, but putting him in check, to always remember, fight within himself and remember that, hey, watch what happened because of what you did back then, see how it all played out, see the tragedy that happened, and make sure it never happens again. Now we're back on the main road where Vayomer HaMelech el Amasa, if you remember, Amasa was the general from Avshalom. And he told Amasa, who he said, I'm going to appoint you to be my general, and he wanted to get out, he wanted Yoav out of the picture, don't forget, because Yoav was the one who killed Avshalom. So he told Amasa, Hazek liyas ish Yehuda shloishes yamim, gather for me all of Shevet Yehuda in 3 days, ve'ata payamoid, and you remain here, and we're going to go after Sheva ben Bichri. Vayelek Amasa lahazik es Yehuda. He goes to gather the people. But he slept around. He didn't get the job done. Didn't listen to the king. Farshim are busy. Why he didn't listen? Either because he saw them learning and he didn't want to be Mevatel Torah. Whatever it is, he didn't get the job done. King told him, new general, I'm going to make you general. He told him to do the job, didn't get the job done. So David HaMelech saw that Amasa is not doing the job. He calls Avishai. He doesn't want to call Yoav. Yoav's on his hit list. He's blacklisted. Avishai is his brother. We got to stop this rebellion from Sheva ben Bichri. You take my servants, go after Sheva ben Bichri. Maybe he's going to go into a fortified city, and he's going to hide over there, and we're not going to be able to get him, and he's going to make the rebellion grow stronger. Now, here's where the trouble begins, because Avishai goes out. Who joins Avishai? All of the soldiers of Yoav. Now, Yoav never left his post of general. Yoav is a general. David HaMelech wanted to dump Yoav and take Amasa. Amasa didn't do his job. Takes Avishai. Yoav still playing general. Joins the club together with Avishai. And Va'kresi Va'plesi V'chol HaGiborim, and all of the archers and all of the slingshotters, I don't even know how you say it, those who throw stones with slings, V'chol HaGiborim, and all of the warriors, Va'yetzu miYerushalayim lirdef achri Sheva ben Bichri. So they're running after Sheva ben Bichri, and they come to the great stone which is in Givoin, and Amos is coming towards them. He's wearing his uniform, and he's wearing his uniform as a general. He has a dagger very close to him. Now usually, when in ancient times you're holding a sword, then it goes down vertically?
No.
Horizontally?
Across.
No, down. Straight up. Up.
Yeah.
You're pulling it up. Vertically. He had a dagger, mitzumedes, which was horizontal. The olav chagoy cherev mitzumedes al mosnov. Bistara, in a sheath. V'hu yatsa vatipoil, and as they're getting closer, it's on an angle. It's a metal sheath, assuming, right? And the dagger falls out. Vayoyim yoyev la'amaso hasholim mata achi. He says, "Manashmachi, what's up, my holy brother?" So I'm sorry. So assuming that it's falling out from the left side, with his right hand, he grabs onto his beard in order to kiss him. And Amasa wasn't aware that he has a sword in his hand. And he hits him in the fifth rib. Every time Yoav kills somebody, he goes for the fifth rib. That's like a lethal spot. All of his innards spill out to the ground. He didn't even have to hit him again, and he died. It was like a one strike. Bullseye. And Yoav and Avishai, his brother, they continue chasing after Shev ben Bichri. They leave Amasa with his guts spilled out on the ground. The Ish Amad Olav. So there was this guy who was standing near Amasa. Minare Yoav, from Yoav's people. Vayoyim and Miyash Chofetz beYoav, whoever loyal to Yoav. Umiyash leDavid, whoever is loyal to David. Achrei Yoav, go after Yoav. Let's go. We can't get stuck over here. V'amasam is goyl el badam. He's rolling in the blood. V'soich hamasila, and he's in the middle of the road. V'yara ishki amad kalam. He saw that everybody was like, did you just realize somebody was just killed? Like somebody who was supposed to become the general, who's actually David's nephew, I think. He just got killed. Is there anybody home? He saw that everybody's standing around and it's turning into a whole crime scene. So he pulls them off the road, Hasada, to the field. Threw over him a beged to cover him. When everybody saw that, because he saw that everybody was standing over Sheva ben Bichri, and when he was taken off the main road and he was put onto the side, everybody kept on moving, which is, I found it just like an insight, more of like a meditational insight, like when you're focusing on the main road and then you have a distraction. As long as this is where your focus is getting stuck on, you're not going anywhere. It has to be pulled over to the side road. It has to be moved over to the side. The distraction has to be moved away. So, I don't know what the message of the story over here was, of why it's important that he was pulled away and that he stayed there and everybody stood behind. I didn't cap where exactly it comes into the big picture. But regardless, so now back onto the main storyline, which was that they're chasing after Sheva ben Bichri. Ovelo Beis Macha. So they went to a city which was called Ovel Beis Macha, name of a city. The Kol HaBeirim, and all of the surrounding cities. Vayikahalu vayove af achrav. They went after Sheva ben Bichri. And vayovoi vayatsuru alav. So he actually made it into a fortified city. So they now make a siege around the city. So they start pouring earth around the city in order to make like ramps, in order that they should be able to get up on top of the walls, the fortress. So they surrounded it by the army, and they start breaking down the stones from the wall. Vatikro isha chachama. There was a wise woman who was there. Now Chazal say, who was this wise woman? It was Serach Bas Asher. And I found it Serach Bas Asher is like quadrillion generations before. And here you're talking about ages later. What I think it means that it was Serach Bas Asher, I think it means that a wise woman, Serach Bas Asher represented the story we know about Serach Bas Asher. She's the one who notified Yaakov Avinu that Oid Yosef Chai. That's the story that we grew up with. Why was that? What was the wisdom? The wisdom was that she knew how to give over the information without it being overwhelming and without it breaking apart the whole Yaakov Avinu. So there's a certain wisdom of how to communicate effectively. Effective communication. Serach Bas Asher represents a woman who had the skill of effective communication. So this wise woman from the city goes and she says, Shimu, Shimu, Imru Noel Yoav. A woman is calling out to you, Yoav. Tell Yoav that a woman is calling him. Come over here and I'll speak to you. Okay, there's a woman calling from the top of the wall. So Yoav comes closer. And the woman says, Ha'ato Yoav, are you the great Yoav, the general? Yep, that's me. Listen to what I have to say. I'm listening. So she's being extremely respectful. She's saying, are you Yoav? There's a woman calling. Are you Yoav? Yes. Would you listen to me? Yes. In sales, it's called a yes-set. That when you want somebody to say yes, you have to make a yes-set. You have to have the person in a yes-set, whereas in a bunch of yeses before you make your pitch. And she says, you should have spoken first to the people of this town. You're making a siege around the town. You're here to destroy an entire village. If you would have asked the people from Avel for peace, we would have agreed to you. You didn't even talk to us. You just came here with an entire army. You surrounded the city. You're about to destroy it and tear it down. We don't need, hello, shalom, what's going on? What do you want from us? And the woman continues, Anoichi shlume amune Yisrael. We're from the loyal Shvatim from Shleim v'Namonim Yisrael. This is where the Lashon comes from, Anshe Shlomaini. Ever heard the Lashon Anshe Shlomaini? In the mention, Anshe Shlomaini, people who are part of a kehillah called Anshe Shlomaini. Where does the word Anshe Shlomaini come? One of the side benefits of learning Navi is that you discover all of the terms we have, where it comes from. Like we said, Levi de Kalmunas. It's a pasuk. The Levi de Kalmunas was the real story of the Pelakshim who were with Avshalom, who were Levi de Kalmunas, and Irvaim v'Yisrael. You'll see in a second. He says, Shlomo Amunei Yisrael. Anoich Shlomo Amunei Yisrael, and then Finansha Shlomaini. Atom Avakesh Lomas Irvaim v'Yisrael. You want to slaughter, you want to kill, or Irvaim v'Yisrael. That's another lashon that's very prevalent, and the Chuvas Svarim, they say Ungvar was Irvaim v'Yisrael. What does it mean, Irvaim b'Yisrael? What does it mean? Aim is a mother. So if you noticed before, this was a city that had a bunch of satellite cities around it. So when you had a main city, if you killed the mother, then all of the little satellite cities were also killed. It's a Irvaim b'Yisrael. It's a city it's a mother city. So she says that our city is a mother city with a bunch of satellite cities around, and you're going to kill the Irvaim b'Yisrael, and you never even communicated with us what you want. Why would you want to eradicate an entire portion of Klal Yisrael? An entire city? No way. Chaz v'shalom. Chalila li im avalaya v'im ashchaz that I should go destroy a city and the people. Lo yechein hadavar. It's not that I'm coming to come to destroy a city. But it's not true. What you're saying that you're Anshe Shlomaini. You're saying you're Anshe Shlomaini, you're from my people. Ki ish mehar Ephraim Sheva ben Bichri Shemoy. There's a guy, Sheva ben Bichri, Nafsa Yodav HaMelech B'David. He is leading a rebellion against David, and now you're hiding him, so you're part of it. So you're not Anshe Shlomaini. Now, you just have to get the incongruity of what's going on over here, where Yoav, who's blacklisted from David HaMelech, who David wants out, who killed Avshalom, is here fighting for David HaMelech and fighting for people who are disloyal to David. You should just get what's going on over here. It's like almost paradoxical. To Nuoy Salavava, give him over himself, and then I'll know that they're Anshe Shlomaini. And then we'll leave the city. So the woman tells Yoav, sure, no problem. You don't need him. We'll just send his head over the. We'll just send his head over. Now she was. This is a part of her wisdom was. The Mefarshim explain over here that really they weren't such Anshe Shlomaini. Really, they were loyal to Sheva ben Bichri, which is why he's surrounded. She understood that, and that's why she didn't want to give him over. She didn't want to give him over because he would rat on them and say that they weren't, everybody wasn't. So she said, "That's no problem. We'll just send his head over. It's okay. You don't need his fingers, right? You just need the head is enough." She comes to the people and she explains to them b'chachmoso, and she says, "Look, Sheva ben Bichri is a moed b'malchus. Even though usually you're not allowed to give anybody from the city away. If like goyim surround the city and they say, give us one person, you're not allowed to give him. But Sheva ben Bichri is a moed b'malchus, he's leading rebellion. And she says, look, if you're going to hold out with him, we're all going to be killed, including Sheva ben Bichri. So you'd much rather give Sheva ben Bichri and we should all stay alive. And she convinced them that not to give him over. So Sheva ben Bichri, they sliced off his head. They sent it to Yoav, Prime, Amazon Prime. So Yoav blows with the shofar, announcing that siege is over. And Yoav is back to Jerusalem, to the king. Now, this is the most crazy situation over, because now Yoav is bringing back the head of Sheva ben Bichri. He squashed the rebellion and he came through for David, which Amasa didn't. He also killed Amasa.
That's what Amasa did too.
Right. No, he didn't even care about that. Him we threw on the wayside. He left him in the middle of the road. He wasn't even in. But he brings back the head. Amasa's dead, and he reestablished himself that he's the general. Big problem. And the beauty of Nach is that we don't always have resolutions for problems. That's why we don't learn Nach, because it doesn't fit with our our sanitized 2 + 2 + 2. So V'Yoav, what happened was V'Yoav el kol hatzava Yisrael. Even though David wanted to remove Yoav, he reestablished himself as a general. Now, one of the very wise things that you see from David HaMelech throughout the entirety of Navi is that he always knew not to react impulsively on the spot. That means he had problems with Yoav back in the day, and when Yoav killed Avner, he also was asked, and he said, look, he's more powerful than me, I'm young, he has experience, I have to deal with him. The Navi teaches you that David HaMelech realized sometimes you have to deal with people because you need them. And even though you disagree with them and you don't dislike them and they backstab you and they did whatever it is, fact is this guy does the job. And if you see that you can't get around him, you got to deal with him. So Yoav el kol hatzava Yisrael, Yoav was back in his position as general. But don't get me wrong, David HaMelech always keeps cheshbon. He always keeps cheshbon. He keeps cheshbon on Shimi ben Gedi. He keeps cheshbon. He knows that he can't act now, but he says, Oit chazon. Wait. Uvenoya ben Yehoyada, he was in charge of ala kresi v'ala plesi. The kresi and the plesi are the archers and the the guys with the slingers, yeah. Va'adoiram, he was alamas, he was anointed back on the mas. V'yeshafat ben chilot hamaskin, and he was like the secretary, writing down the zechronis of the melech. This is very important. Again, this is the second time where when the first time we had this, it was when David HaMelech first took over Yerushalayim. It says who he anointed to be part of his cabinet, and now when he's coming back again, he's reestablishing his government. He's starting from scratch. Ushva Soifer, and Shva was in charge of writing it. They were the priests. They were loyal to David. V'gam Ido Hayoidi, and Ido Hayoidi was a kohen LeDavid. He was also a sar v'shoifet. And that's the end of this Perek. Now, before you, there's three nekudas that I took out from this Perek that I just found. One inyan was the story of David HaMelech, the story of the tragedy of sin, and the consequences that came out from this Amonis Chayas, Lebedik Almonis. The second inyan was that this woman's chokhmah, this woman's skill of being able to communicate effectively and saving an entire city from tragedy. And the third message was that sometimes in life you have to deal with people who you don't like, and you just have to sit in the discomfort. Because this person killed Avshalom, whatever was going on, he killed Avner, and sometimes you just have to sit with discomfort. The story of David HaMelech, why he's such a heroic king, was because it's not a perfect story. That's the heroism. That's the godless of David HaMelech, is that he was able to keep on going even when things were not perfect and were not the way they were meant to be. But he still made the best out of the situation, accepted life on life's terms. Chan.